Hey, good afternoon, folks. I'm attorney Roger P. Foley, and I'm driving to Broward. I have some depositions to do today, and I wanted to talk to you about something that happened recently. I had represented a young man. A young man called me out of the blue and was very stressed. And he came across as a very nice young man, but he had some problems. Some of them could be drugs, some of them could be mental health. I wasn't really sure, but he was looking for assistance. So, sorry, I'm in traffic, so I'm just waiting to go. He asked me for some help, and he had one case. Now, I said to him, you know what, I'll help you. And I decided to do the case pro bono. And, you know, pro bono, you have to be selective. I'm not going to represent the bank robber, but occasionally someone just, whatever it is, the man upstairs is talking to me and says, help out this person. I don't know, the inner voice, whatever it is. So it's a felony charge, and I take the case. And as I'm filing in, case number 2 pops up, case number 3 pops up. So the young man ends up with 3 felony cases. Of course, they all go in front of the same judge. And I reach out to case filing, and I'm trying to convince them to drop the charges. I'm showing them where the case falters, and logic and evidence, and what the police did wrong. On Monday morning quarterbacking, it's what I do, right? And went all the way up to the chain, like to the top dog, or one of the top dogs at the state attorney's office. He's like, can't do it. Okay, I get it. Reasonable minds differ. So the case gets set for court. Now, this young man, I don't know what the politically correct term is. He's African American. He's a man of color. His family, even though I'm helping him and I'm not charging him, the family reaches out to another attorney. Attorney with the same skin color. And I know the attorney. He's a very nice attorney, and he reaches out to me. And we decide, hey, you know what? Let's just help the young man together. We'll do it together. And we both look at the issues, and we both do some research. We have a few meetings. We go over the facts of the case. And I say, let's try to do a diversion program. And we kind of banter back and forth about what is right and what is wrong and what is likely. And we both agree, well, this isn't likely. The victims are objecting, the state attorney is objecting, and well, how do you get it in if the state and the victim are objecting, right? Well, there's a little clause in the Florida statutes, and that allows for, if someone is under the influence of drugs or alcohol at the time of a crime, or has some sort of mental illness, I forget exactly how it reads, I don't have it in front of me, that the court can order pretrial intervention, which is diversion. So we formulate a plan and kind of give the thoughts, and listen, we were both, it's not a high likelihood shot, but I'm gonna try it. We're gonna set it for an evidentiary hearing. The state gets to talk, the victims get to talk, and ultimately the judge makes the decision. And our client has a lot of issues, right? He ends up in mental health, where he's having to be hospitalized, like Baker acted, that kind of thing, and treatment, and then it appears that he has some sort of drug addiction, and it quickly became one of my most difficult cases. And you might, well, how could that be your most difficult case? Because everybody was saying no, and when you have 3 cases that happened on separate dates, well, you got a young man that's, young man. I'm not going to like say age, but he was a young man. And the statute only allows for one withhold. Now he becomes a convicted felon. And because of mental illness and possibly drug addiction or the combination thereof, we're not doctors. We don't know what the issue is. Well, the likelihood is that the state was going to give us convictions, and that's what they were offering us, and probation and even some jail. And I had to sell a judge. And on the day of, we decided, hey, I'll make the argument and you back me up for whatever I miss. And, we're working together, right? But I decide to address the court, and we're both standing there with the client. And I don't know, it probably lasted, the first hearing, 35 to 45 minutes. And everyone was objecting, and all the victims couldn't be present at the same time. So the case was bifurcated. It was separated into 2 hearings. Now the next hearing lasted, victims got to speak, right? The state attorney speaks, and I have an opportunity to humanize my client. I've got medical records, I have rehab facilities, I got, and going through all these different things. And ultimately the judge says, listen, over the state's objection, over the victim's objection, I'm going to go with what the defense counsel is arguing. And I'm going to give him a chance, and I'm going to put him into a pre-trial intervention program. He's going to get mental health treatment, he's going to get substance abuse treatment, et cetera, et cetera. And now I'm explaining to the family, and so is the other attorney, both of us are, tag teaming it, explaining to the client, this family, this is what you got to do, this is what's going to happen. And I remember it being one of the finer days of being an attorney, because the other attorney took me aside. He said, Roger, he goes, I really didn't think that you even had a 1% shot, but you were optimistic. And he goes, man, that was just fine lawyering. He goes, you did something that I never thought would have been possible. And I was like, we did it, because we had talked about it several times. But I got to tell you, when that attorney said that, I really felt good. I left the courtroom that day going, I made a difference. It was a pro bono case. We both volunteered our time and services. Well, then as time goes by, and the spoiler of the story is that the family calls and the client's not doing well, and I'm talking to the client, the client's sort of giving attitude and arguing against, and then there's a fight amongst family members and a physical altercation, and of course the family's telling me these things, and I can't say anything, right? I can listen, but I represent the client. Well, the case is over now, right? The case is over. It's not over, it's in limbo, because the person has to do what they're supposed to do. In exchange, the case gets dismissed at the end. Well, I get a phone call that the client had been rearrested. Now, the client hadn't kept in contact, the client, with either attorney, right? With either one of us. And we filed motions to withdraw. And this happened a while ago. Pretty sure I went into court and the judge granted it. I don't know. A long time has gone by, and I get a call, a text message from the other attorney. He goes, didn't we withdraw from that case? I go, yeah, like he got in trouble again and again, and I was like, he's like, yeah, I just got a call, I just got an email from the judge, and then I checked my email from the judge. Hey, we missed court. Didn't know we had court, because we weren't notified. We had withdrawn from the case, but somehow it didn't get into the system. And when we both looked up at the docket, it doesn't even show that we had a court hearing. And I go, didn't we go in the courtroom? And he's like, that's what I remembered. I'm going, man, are we both crazy, or did a button not get pushed? And how do you tell? Like, you gotta go pull records. So anyway, now we got to go in and formally withdraw. But he wrote me a message. He goes something to the effect of like, this is what pro bono is all about, right? Like, no thank you, no love from the client. I mean, this case turned into 3 separate felonies, a lot of work, a lot of research, a lot of trying to convince the powers that be to get done. And then we had like a Michael Jordan, like 79-point day where everything went right and the judge agreed with us. It doesn't happen all the time, it just doesn't happen. You got the state objecting, the victims objecting, and the judge still does it. Now, what I did do, guys, is the case involved restitution, meaning that the victims owed money, right, for losses. I was able to get all of the victims their money back, and I sent it certified return receipt, and the family was able to put money together. Me and the other attorney, we didn't get paid, but we wanted to make sure that the victims got paid, and that was central to our argument that, whatever losses they sustained, they deserve that money, and we weren't arguing whether they deserve that or not. Hey, we have a check, and I think at the hearing, we already had 2 of the 3 victims paid off, and I was receiving a check within 48 hours, and I was going to send it to the victim, and I did, certified return receipt mail. So, every so often someone calls my office and goes, hey, you do pro bono? And I do, but I can tell you that almost every pro bono case that I do, and I do a couple each year, right? And the Florida bar asks you to keep up with what you do, and it's hard to keep up with it. I mean, I usually give up after like 35, 40 hours of work, because I'm not like, hey, 15 minutes here, 10 minutes there. Once I get to like 35, 40 hours, I usually just write, hey, I did 35 to 50 hours, and I always have the first 35 or 40 logs, so I don't have any issues. But I can tell you that when you do pro bono work, it always turns into more than a simple case. It always turns into, or it's rare that you really get the appreciation. I'll just tell you, each year, and I don't think I have any of my reviews, any of my videos on YouTube, any of them say like, hey, you know what? I didn't have, 2 quarters to rub together. Mr. Foley listened to me, or in this case, this other attorney listened to me. I don't see, it almost, and I get it, I'm not doing it for the love or for the appreciation, but it's like, hey man, just write me a card that says thank you, send me an email or a text, I don't know. So, and again, I don't do it for the thankfulness. I'm a tool of the man upstairs, but I'm not gonna lie, a percentage or 2 of my inner side, I'm not a perfect man. I'm like, damn it, man, you couldn't just quick thank you? But it is what it is. But when you do a pro bono case and you have the kind of results that we had, and then the person goes and commits more crimes and doesn't do what they're supposed to do, you can't stay in it. You just can't, right? The pro bono work in criminal is not for the repetitive criminal, the guy that's got 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 15, 20 cases, right? The pro bono is for the homeless person, the person who, got involved with the wrong people at the wrong time, and maybe they were young and impressionable, and mom and dad, worked 3 jobs, you could barely pay the rent. It's to give the guy that doesn't get any privileges, whether he's a man of color, whether he's a man of poverty, whatever it is, right? Things haven't gone his way, and sometimes you just need to step up as a human being and help another human being. That's what pro bono is about. So I have people calling me going, yeah, I got a drug trafficking charge. Would you? No, I'm not going to represent you pro bono on a drug trafficking charge, right? I've had charges that I went, this is ridiculous, and I've either cut my price in half or just done it. It's a lot easier if you can kick it out in a couple of months and be done with it. It's the cases like these cases that I'm talking about that were over a year long with 2 attorneys working on them, and going to court monthly and researching issues, talking with family, talking with the client, talking to prosecutor after prosecutor, going up the chain of command, dealing with mental health issues, hospital, Baker Act, medical records, rehab facilities, treatment orders. It just takes time. And listen, it's awesome when it works out, but it just picture you I don't know, I'm thinking about like blowing up the mattress for the pool, right? And I blow it up, I lay down on the mattress, I'm laying out in the sun, right, for 5 minutes, and I'm looking up at the palm trees, and I'm like, man, life is good. And all of a sudden, and the water folds over to me, and I go underwater. Like blah 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 blah. Like that's what I feel like. So I'm just sharing a story. I got to drive to Fort Lauderdale, so I'm sharing a story. My heart's in the right place. I really do think that the person really did need help. But if you don't acknowledge addiction, drug addiction, if you don't acknowledge mental health, it just becomes a cycle. And listen, both mental health and drug addiction take time. You don't get addicted in a day, a week, a month, right? Even 3 months, you don't. So going to rehab for 30 days or going to some AA meetings or NA meetings, that doesn't solve your problem. Like, once you're addicted and you're out of control with it and you commit crimes, now you kind of need, it's like you need a time of reflection and a time. But if you start the treatment and then you quit the treatment, then you don't like it, then you get kicked out of a facility, then, man, the case was just, wow. It was just over and over and over. And then family, when brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles are calling you and like, is there anything else you could do? I'm like, my goodness, like I don't think there's anything else me and the other attorney could do. Like, I mean, I'm literally giving you like the $50,000 defense here. Like, I'm giving you everything I got. I can't win. There's a confession, there's videotaped evidence, there's eyewitnesses. Like, I've done all the work. I don't want to say me and the other attorney did all the work. And it's like he said yesterday, he goes, like, this is the life of pro bono, man. And I can't imagine, and I'm rambling, I know. And if you watch it, you watch it. But I imagine the PD, right? The public defender, the guy that like gets into it, like, I'm going to fight the battle. I'm going to fight against the bad cops. I'm going to fight against the corruption. I'm going to give the underdog, the chance. And they represent Mr. Smith, and Mr. Smith, walks away from a burglary charge. And then next thing you know, Mr. Smith, they see Mr. Smith again, and Mr. Smith's in on a stabbing charge. And then Mr. Smith is again in court, and he's on a drug charge. And then he's in on a domestic. Doesn't it deflate you? Like, how eager can you be to get knocked down every day, right? And I know, like, I watch the Rocky movies. I'm a big fan of positivity, right? But my God, you got to have some successes, and luckily I have some successes where clients have gotten off heroin, and 5 years later they've written me a letter, and 10 years later they picked up the phone and said, I just want to tell you thank you for everything. Like, you made such a difference in my life. And man, that's the energy, that's the source of fuel. But what about the guys like this that they just keep getting in trouble and keep getting arrested, and like, you're like, dude, I I had a 79-point Michael Jordan day, and you friggin' ruined it, dude. You ruined it, because you know what's going to happen, right? So now, just to go back, right? Now the diversion's kicked out. Now it's either probation, jail, or prison, or a combination. And what mercy, doesn't matter who the attorney is, what mercy is the court, the prosecution, the victim's going to have? Because they all have a say, right? The victims have a say. The state attorney has a say. And if I'm the prosecutor, I go, Judge, you made the choice last time, Judge. You gave this person who had 3 separate felonies a chance to get them all dismissed. You set them up for treatment. You set them up for mental health treatment, drug treatment. All they had to do was complete these things. You didn't set, that's it. You waived fees. You did. And Judge, we're back. So obviously, getting the benefit of the doubt didn't work. It's like strike 1, first case, strike 2, strike 3. Then somehow the attorneys did it, and they all of a sudden, even though there were already 3 strikes and you should have been out, somehow there was an error and we got another one, and this time we hit a home run and the case was going to be dismissed. I mean, this is like a slam dunk for the prosecution. So I don't know what'll happen to this person, and I do care, but the other attorney and I, both agreed, many moons ago, hey, we're not going to get back in it. We're not going to get back in it because there was no contact, there was no following of instructions, the directions. Stayed clean for a while, got back into it, right? And again, you mix addictions and problems and drugs and alcohol and mental health issues and ADHD and whatever it may be. I'm talking general because I'm not being specific details of the case. It's just sad. And you have a young person who's ultimately high likelihood that they will end up in prison, whether it's on these cases or another case, it's high likelihood. So I don't know, how do the PDs handle it? So when everyone's shitting on the PDs and saying all the things that they say about them, I don't know, how many losses can you go through? I don't know. I mean, we all have our share of losses, but thank goodness my wins outweigh my losses, and the truth is I get to select my cases. The PD doesn't. Someone comes into my office, I go, I can't win that. Only thing you can do is pay me to mitigate the sentence. What do? They go hire someone else, or they don't even have the money for that and they go with the PD. So, I don't know, just thoughts, guys. Thoughts of the system. And I know that then there's some people that are, all for punishment. Hey, they did the crime, they got the benefit, they should just go to prison and be done. And there's an argument for that. But where does it end? When someone has mental illness, they have no control over that. They do, and I know people say it's a disease, you do have control over your addiction. You do have control over it. And it's the choices you make in the beginning that get you there as well. So, listen, I don't want to hear all the hate mail. I get it. I advocate for people with addiction all the time and say it's a disease. But, you have to separate yourself. That means if you got to go into a year-long treatment facility, that means if you don't go out and you have no friends, it means you don't go out, you don't have any friends. It's called buckling down. And it's hard, and I'm not saying it's easy. I have a sweets addiction, sugar addiction. My goodness, I put a piece of candy or cookie in my mouth every day, and I'll go a week, I'll go a month, and boom, like the urge becomes overpowering. So I get it, and I can imagine that, whatever the drug of choice people have, but mental illness, that's something that you have, that's genetic, or I don't even know, but it's it's sad, right? Because you have people with mental illness that there's no place for them. There's no, the family can't handle them, right? They get kicked out. There's not enough mental hospitals anymore. Like somehow that's like, I don't know. There's not enough mental hospitals, because I tell you, I talk to people with severe mental illness every single day. They call my office. It's amazing to me. I really feel like blinded by the amount of mental illness that I see. I mean, people who are functioning, that just the things that they say. I can make the bump joke, regardless of what side you're on politics, right? Like whatever side you're on of the aisle, you think the other side is mentally ill. So I'm not going to tell you my side. It's irrelevant to what I do. People call me up and go, "Oh, I know that you're left, or I know that you're right." I'm like, "You don't know anything." But I go, okay, you know, like the only thing that I put out there is I'm a man, like, who believes in the man upstairs. You know, that's where I'm undivided. Like, that's my belief. Politics are fact specific and issue specific to me, and yeah. So, but I just find that there's so much mental illness calling my office. I wish I could record every single call interaction and post it, because you just, words don't do it justice. Every day. I used to say 2 or 3 days a week. Now it's every day that I get calls, voicemails, people that call at 2 o'clock in the morning to talk about something that happened 9 years ago. I mean, I'm like, what? Sometimes we got to let the past be the past and move on. But with mental illness, you can't get past it. And if you don't have treatment, and sometimes treatment's not enough. So I think we need a lot more mental hospitals. I really do. I don't think that we're creating mentally disturbed people who have all kinds of serious mental illness are breeding. That's the reality. They're breeding. So I don't know, it's a tangent I'm off on, but pro bono, it doesn't always work out. Sometimes it does, and you get the success stories, but sometimes it's just like, holy crap, I did all that. Just picture building a model, or I don't know, like building an old car from scratch, right? Taking like a Chevy Nova or a Camaro and stripping it down, the metal, and then redoing it and fixing it and bondoing it and redoing it and making it as perfect as you can be, and then painting it, and then putting in a new suspension and getting the all parts and finding and searching and putting all the things in, right? And you've just built like the car of your dreams, the car that you looked at like as a kid and went, that's cool, I wish I could have that one day. And then like one day, you put all the time in it. It takes you a year to rebuild this car and turn it into absolute perfection. And people are going, oh my goodness, that car is like, it's like Michelangelo. Wow, like it's just beautiful. And you go out and you look at it, and the next day someone comes and smashes it with a bat, or machine guns it, or lights it on fire. And there's a little part of you like you're totally emotional. With my job, I'm professional, so I can't get emotional, but they just destroy that piece of art, that 79-point Michael Jordan awesome day that you had as an attorney, where other people were like, brother, that was impressive, and you just felt so good about it. And now they go back and I was disqualified for steroids or whatever, like that's how I feel. So I don't know, if you watched 29 minutes of my video, you know who I am. God bless you. Help your fellow man, and whatever your chosen field is, do your best. Okay, See ya. Bye.